What's going on? I'm the Kid Gowie here with the game day to bring you the hot topic of the week. This week's hot topic is the NBA draft lottery. If you're an Orlando Magic or Oklahoma City Thunder fan, you're probably not happy with the results of the NBA draft lottery. The Orlando Magic had the third worst record this year, and unfortunately, they weren't repaid handsomely as they'll be picking 5th in this year's draft. As for Oklahoma City, they'll be picking at number 6, which isn't too bad, but it is a tough pill to swallow knowing that you could have had the Houston Rockets first rounder if they would have fell out of the top 5. So knowing that you only get one lottery pick is kinda tough. But wait a minute, Thunder fans, there is a bright spot. Sam Presti has been collecting draft picks like a hoarder. So if you guys feel the need to trade up in the draft, you definitely have the capital to make that possible. Now, enough with the sorrow. Let's get to the other side of the spectrum, where the Detroit Pistons, Houston Rockets, Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Toronto Raptors are going crazy. And it's actually pretty funny when you think about it, because the top 3 picks in this year's NBA draft all kind of play a part within each other. But we'll get into that. First, it's only right that we get into the Detroit Pistons.
Detroit basketball!
Just when Detroit basketball began to lose hope, over severe things of course, like Killian Hayes' injury, Blake Griffin's buyout, and watching Derrick Rose go to the Knicks and make the playoffs, the Pistons have finally been blessed with their first number 1 overall pick in 51 years, which basically means that Detroit has so much leverage in this year's draft. If they decide to sit on the pick, they could take a Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, or Jalen Suggs. But they could decide to trade the pick, and if they do, they could possibly acquire a young star that they can pair with Jeremy Grant, and they can build around the both of them. But I'm gonna tell you one thing, don't make the same mistake you made in 2003.
The Detroit Pistons select Darko Milicic.
Don't get too risky. Just take the best player available. As for the Houston Rockets, I'm pretty sure I can speak for everyone when I say that no one had a worse season than they did. Not only did they lose 2 franchise players in James Harden and Russell Westbrook, but they also lost members of the front office, members of the coaching staff. They lost hella players this season due to injury, which led to them losing damn near every game this season. If the Rockets landed anywhere outside of the top 4, we would have lost that draft pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But instead, not only did we place in the top 4, but we're picking number 2. On to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They find themselves in a very interesting spot. Depending on how the Pistons and Rockets pick, the Cavs could find a replacement for KPJ, who is now a Houston Rocket, or Jared Allen, who is due for a ridiculous amount of money this summer. So just like the previous teams I mentioned, Cleveland also has options. And last but not least are the Toronto Raptors, who only had a 7.5% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. They end up landing number 4, which is pretty damn good, especially since the Raptors are on the verge of losing their star point guard Kyle Lowry. It's very possible that you'll still have a Jalen Suggs on the board who plays a very similar style to Lowry. So Raptors fans, even though you're picking kinda high, you still find yourself in the best player available situation, which isn't bad, so be appreciative, because no matter who you land in that top 4, it's going to be a stud. As I stated earlier in this video, the top 3 picks relate to each other in a way. When the Houston Rockets traded James Harden to Brooklyn, it was in a 3-team trade, which included the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is how the Cavaliers ended up with Taurean Prince and Jared Allen. This is important. The Cavaliers then decided to give away Kevin Porter Jr.'s locker to the newly acquired Taurean Prince. That's what caused Kevin Porter Jr. to flip out, which then led to the Cavaliers trading Kevin Porter Jr. to the Houston Rockets for a 2nd-round pick. Now you're probably wondering how Detroit fits in any of this. Well, since the Brooklyn Nets acquired James Harden, they now had a super team and looked to get even stronger, which led to Blake Griffin getting bought out and going to Brooklyn. So even though there was a lot of craziness and tension and drama going on amongst the 3 organizations, now I guess we can say that it was all worth it.